Today in our special coverage of Idaho's Hispanic labor and legacy, we go back to the 1940s during World War II. That's when the U.S. turned to the Bracero program to bring in Hispanic workers and fill critical labor shortages. But where did those workers live? Hector Mendoza takes us through the history of one of Idaho's key labor camps in Caldwell. And as he discovered, Farmway Village changed hands several times before ultimately becoming a hub for agricultural labor.
You may have heard this story before, but let's open the book together and flip back through the pages of history to the Caldwell Labor Camp, now known today as Farmway Village.
You know, these houses out here were built between 92 and 96.
Author of the book Caldwell Labor Camp, A Place to Call Home, Mike Dittenber, spent years researching this history, documenting the stories that might otherwise have been lost.
I started chatting with people who were telling me about their fond memories of living here. And every time I finished chatting with them, they would say, one of these days I'm going to write this down. But nobody had written it down.
The camp didn't spring up all at once. It passed through a couple of different hands before finally taking shape. The opening of the camp in 1940 was the government's promise to provide housing and dignity to those who labored in the fields of the Gem State. The first families were from the Midwest in search of survival and steady farm work. By the mid-1940s,
it became primarily occupied by the Japanese Americans who were interned and then later released after the internment period.
Then, in the late 1940s, it was workers of Mexican descent who began to call the camp home. Just years earlier, the U.S. government had deported hundreds of thousands of Mexican workers in name of protecting American jobs. But soon, the nation's farms faced severe labor shortages during World War II, and so the Bracero program was born, bringing skilled farm workers north to harvest the crops that kept the nation fed.
There is definitely a look about it. There is definitely a feel about it, and there is definitely an understanding that we are a small city here.
But living in the camp was not easy.
We were poor, and the conditions were probably not the best, but we didn't know that because we were happy. I mean, as far as we knew, we were rich. I mean, we had food to eat, we had a place to sleep, we had a roof over our heads.
Not only that, Estela Zamora, who used to live on the labor camp, says racism, intolerance, and prejudice followed many families.
When we would get to the school, our bus being called the Mexican bus, I think that was probably the most painful for me. But I got beyond that.
And yet, through the struggle, they built lives, raised children, and shaped a community that still stands today. That history is important, yes, but it does not define Farmway Village, and it certainly does not define the people who live there.
They'd have their radios blaring. I mean, everybody turned on a radio and, ay, las tortillas. Oh my gosh. You can smell the tortillas, the frijoles, everything cooking, you know, los huevos con chorizo. You could smell all of that. It was amazing. It was pretty awesome. It's doing really well. It provides a need for the people out here. I just feel like the identity has changed, but it's still, to many of us that live in the area that were here way back then, it's still home. It still has a very special place in our hearts, and I don't think that's something that will ever go away from me.
Other labor camps in Idaho were in Wilder, Weiser, El Milagro in Twin Falls, and Caldwell. The Bracero program ended in 1964 after 22 years. 2 decades later, the Immigration Reform and Control Act of 1986 created the H-2A program, allowing U.S. agricultural employers to temporarily bring in foreign workers to address seasonal labor shortages, which Farmway Village still houses. Join us tomorrow here on the News at 4 for a look at how Latina leaders are stepping up in the classroom and in politics. Then on Sunday, we'll trace a journey of hard work, resilience, and lasting impact, showing how their contributions built communities and continue to define Idaho's future. Join us for a half-hour special this Sunday at 9 a.m. right here on KTVB.